Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, in the county, Sheriff, state of Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, October the 27th, 2024. The time 12:45 p.m. First thing, thank you my family, my support for you, team, encourage support, continue to keep myself employed in Memphis, tri-state area, continue to further my education, tomorrow, college online, continue to pursue my social degree, study being a straight contract market, the present time, took a break and going to school. In the future, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to earn my social degree as well as other degree. Now I'm starting my Facebook Live. Hello everybody, my name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, in the county, Sheriff, state of Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, October the 27th, 2024. The time 12:46 p.m. First thing, thank you my fans, my support for you, team, encourage support, continue to keep myself employed in the Memphis tri-state area, continue to further my education, moral college line, continue to pursue my social degree, study being a straight country mark. Present time, took a break and going to school. In the future, I'm going to go back to school, earn my social degree, as well as other degrees. Now, the names of God in the Old Testament: El Shaddai, Elohim, and the Tetragrammaton: Yahweh, Jehovah, Tsidkenu, Jehovah, Rapha, Jehovah, Elohim, God the Creator, Jehovah Nissi, El Elyon, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Sabaoth, Jehovah Roy, God the Shepherd, Jehovah Mikot Dishkim, Abba, Mighty God, Jehovah Shalom, Jehovah Shammah, Adonai, El Olam, Alpha and Omega, Emmanuel. Those are names of God in the Old Testament. Now, names of God, and of course, all this coming from sources on the web, World Wide Web. And New Testament, Bible, names of God: El Shaddai, Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah Jireh, El Roy, Jehovah Roy, El Olam, Emmanuel, Branch, Adonai, Jehovah Tsidkenu, the Lord our banner, Jehovah Shalom, Alpha and Omega, Abba, Mighty God, Consolation of Israel, Elohim, El Elyon, the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh, Jehovah Shammah, Christ, Good Shepherd, Son of Man. And those are names of God, New Testament names of God, biblical names of God in the Bible. And all this Old Testament, names of God in the Old Testament, as well as New Testament names of God, names of God in the New Testament. It's all coming from sources on the World Wide Web. Now, click over here to BibleStudyTools.com. The New International Version of the Holy Bible. Bible verse of the day. It's coming from the book of Romans. That's in the New Testament. The 5th chapter, verse number 17. And it reads, "For if by the trespass of the one man death reigned through that one man, how much more will those who receive God's abundant provision of grace and of the gift of righteousness reign in life through the one man, Jesus Christ?" And again, reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible. The Bible verse of the day came from the book of Romans. It's in the New Testament. The 5th chapter, the 17th verse. Now, also, we have today's Bible reading. It's coming from 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter. The book of Isaiah, chapters 27 and 28. And the book of Psalms, 118. And you have Bible study and you have Bible study videos. You have the feature verse topics. You have popular Bible verses, such as John, the book of John, chapter 3, verse 16. The book of Genesis, the 1st chapter, the 1st verse. The book of Philippians, the 4th chapter, the 6th verse. The book of Philippians, the 4th chapter, verse 13. The book of Romans, the 12th chapter, the 2nd verse. The book of Romans, the 8th chapter, 28th verse. The book of Proverbs, the 3rd chapter, verse number 6. The book of Jeremiah, the 29th chapter, verse number 11. The book of Proverbs, the 3rd chapter, verse number 5. The book of Matthew, the 28th chapter, verse 19. You have popular Bible commentaries. And again, today's inspiration is coming from the book of Romans, the 8th chapter, verse 28. And it reads, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." And again, that's today's inspiration. And it's coming from the book of Romans, the 8th chapter, the 28th verse. All right. Now the Bible versions, we still over here on BibleStudyTool.com. Bible versions and translations, like we have the best known translations, such as the Holman Christian Standard Bible, the English Standard Version, the King James Version, the Message Bible, the New American Standard Bible, the New International Version, the New King James Version, New Living Translation, New Revised Standard Version. You have other translations, modern, like the Bible in Basic English, the Common English Bible, the Complete Jewish Bible, Good News Translation, God's Word Translation, Hebrew Names Version, Jubilee, Bible 2000, Lexham, English Bible, New Century Version, New International Reader's Version, the Orthodox Jewish Bible, the Third Millennium Bible, World English Bible, Young's Literal Translation. You have older translations, American Standard Version, the Darby Translation, Douay-Rheims Catholic Bible, Revised Standard Version, the Tyndale Bible, the Latin Vulgate Bible, the Webster Bible, and the Wycliffe Bible. New Testament only, and you have Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, Italian, Dutch, and Chinese. And so, we were on BibleStudyTool.com. Now let's click over here to BibleGateway.com. And reading from the New International Version, the verse of the day is coming from the book of Hebrews, the 4th chapter, the 12th verse. And it reads, "For the word of God is alive and active." Excuse me. Sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. And again, reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible, the verse of the day, and it came from the book of Hebrews, the 4th chapter, verse number 12. Now, available versions of the Holy Bible. You have language, and then you have version. Such as from A to Z. Amharic, the New Amharic Standard Version, the Arabic Bible. You have Awadi Bible, Bulgarian Bibles, Cibono Bibles. You have Cherokee. It's a New Testament Bible. Sorani Bible. Kakachiquil Occidental Bible. You have a Czech Bible, Welsh, Danish. Then you have German Bibles. You have English Bibles. There's a lot of those. A lot of Spanish Bibles. Persian, Farsi, New Testament Bible. Finnish Bible. French Bibles. Greek Bibles. What's that? Gujarati Bible. Hebrew Bible. Hindi Bible. Croatian Bible. You have a Haitian Creole Bible. Hungarian Bibles, Hawaii Pidgin Bible, Icelandic Bible, Italian Bible, Japanese Bible, Jakartic Oriental and Quechua and Korean Bible, Latin Bible, Luganda Bible, Maori Bible, Macedonian Bible, it's a New Testament, Marathi Bible, Mam Central and Mam Toto Santos, Low German, Nepali, Dutch Bibles, Norwegian, Chichewa Bible, Oriya Bible, West Central Oromo Bible, Punjabi Bible, Polish Bibles, Papua Nawat Bibles, Portuguese Bibles. Quichua Bible, Kachi, Occidental Bible, Romanian Bible, Russian Bibles, Slavic Bibles, Somali Bible, Albanian Bibles, Serbian Bibles, Swedish Bibles, Swahili Bibles, Tamil Bible, Thai Bibles, Tagalog Bibles, Twi Bible, Ukrainian Bible, Urdu Bible, Uspantico Bible, Vietnamese Bible, Yoruba Bible, Chinese Bible. So like I said, from A to Z. And the Holy Bible is being translated various languages all over the world. And of course you know that the Old Testament is based on the Jewish belief and faith. You come into the New Testament, the historical Jesus, and you have both Old Testament and New Testament. So like I said, the language of the Bible and the version on BibleGateway.com. Now I'm going to click over here to this Tetragrammaton. And being over here on Wikipedia, a quick reference. Let me scroll down. Okay, you have C also. You have references and notes. A lot of citations. And you have sources. As well as external links. Okay. The Tetragrammaton is the four-letter Hebrew theonym, transliterated as capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital H, or capital Y, capital H, capital V, capital H. The name of God in the Hebrew Bible. The four letters written and read from right to left in Hebrew are Y-O-D-H, H-E, W-A-W, and H-E. The name may be derived from a verb that means to be, to exist, to cause to become, or to come to pass. While there is no consensus about the structure and etymology of the name, the form Yahweh is now accepted almost universally among biblical and Semitic linguistic scholars, though the vocalization Jehovah continues to have wide usage. The books of the Torah and the rest of the Hebrew Bible, and except Esther, Ecclesiastes, and with a possible instance of, okay, let me see, what's that? Jah or Yah is a short form of the Tetragrammaton. In verse 8:6, the Song of Songs contains this Hebrew name. Observant Jews and those who follow Talmudic Jewish tradition do not pronounce, nor do they read aloud proposed transcription forms such as Yahweh or Jehovah. Instead, they replace it with a different term, whether in addressing or referring to the God of Israel. Common substitutes in Hebrew are Adonai, literally translated my lords, pluralis, majestatis, taken as singular, or Elohim, literally gods, but treated as singular when meaning God in prayer, or Hashim, the name in everyday speech. The four letters, the letter properly written and read from right to left in biblical Hebrew are Y-O-D, H-E, W-A-W, H-E. The etymology. The Hebrew Bible explains about the formula. Transliterate, he translated, I am, then I am. The name of God revealed to Moses in Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. This would frame capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital H, as a derivation from the Hebrew triconsonantal root, HYH, to be, become, come to pass, with a third person masculine, Y prefix, equivalent to English, he, in place of the first person, thereby affording translation as he who causes to exist, he who is, etc. Although this would elicit the form capital Y, capital H, capital Y, capital H, not capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital H. To rectify this, some scholars propose that the tetragrammaton derived instead from the triconsonantal root, itself an archaic doublet of, with the final form eliciting similar translation as though derived from the same. As such, the consensus among modern scholars considers that capital Y, capital H, capital Y, capital W, capital H represents a verbal form, with the Y representing the third masculine verbal prefix of the verb HYH, to be, as indicated in the Hebrew Bible. The vocalization. Like all letters in the Hebrew script, the letters in capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital H originally indicated consonants. In unpointed biblical Hebrew, most vowels are not written, but some are indicated ambiguously, as certain letters came to have a secondary function, indicating vowels, similar to the Latin use of I and V, to indicate either the consonants JW or the vowels IU. Hebrew letters used to indicate vowels are known as or matrix lexicons, mothers of reading. Therefore, it can be difficult to deduce how a word is pronounced from its spelling, and each of the four letters in the tetragrammaton can individually serve as a matrix lexicon. Several centuries later, between the 5th through 10th centuries CE, the original consonantal text of the Hebrew Bible was provided with vowel marks by the Masoretes to assist reading. In places where the word to be read, the kiri, differed from that indicated by the consonants of the written text, the ketiv. They wrote the kiri in the margin as a note showing what was to be read. In such a case, the vowel marks of the kiri were written on the ketiv. For a few frequent words, the marginal note was omitted. These are called kiri perpetuum. One of the frequent cases was the tetragrammaton, which according to later rabbinic Jewish practice should not be pronounced, but read as Adonai, literal translation, my lords, pluralis, majestatis, taken as singular. Or, if the previous or next word already was Adonai, as Elohim, God. Writing the vowel diacritics of these two words on the consonants, capital Y, capital H, capital V, capital H, produces, and respectively, ghost words that will spell Yehovah and Yehovah, respectively. The oldest complete or nearly complete manuscripts of the Masoretic text with Tiberian vocalizations such as the Aleppo Codex and the Leningrad Codex, both of the 10th or 11th century, mostly write Yahweh, with no point on the first H. It could be because the O diacritic point plays no useful role in distinguishing between Adonai and Elohim, and so it's redundant. Or it could point to the kiri, being, which is Aramaic for the name, Yahweh. The scholarly consensus is that the original pronunciation of the tetragram was Yahweh. R. Reno agrees that when in the late first millennium, Jewish scholars inserted indications of vowels into the Hebrew Bible, they signaled that what was pronounced was Adonai, Lord, Non-Jews later combined the vowels of Adonai with the consonants of the Tetragrammaton and invented the name Jehovah. Paul June and Takamitsu Morake state the Kiri is the Lord, while the Keter is probably, according to ancient witnesses, and they add note 1 in our translation, we have used Yahweh, a form widely accepted by scholars instead of the traditional Jehovah. In 1869, Smith Bible Dictionary, a collaborative work of noted scholars of the time, declared, whatever therefore be the true pronunciation of the word, there can be little doubt that it is not Jehovah. Mark P. Arnold remarked that certain conclusions drawn from the pronunciation of as Yahweh would be valid even if the scholarly consensus were not correct. Thomas Romer holds that the original pronunciation of Y, capital Y, capital HWA, was Yahoo or Yahoo. Max Riesel, in the mysterious name of capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital H, says that the vocalization of the tetragram must originally have been Yahweh or Yahweh, or whichever. Oh, okay. It's the E. Yehua or Yahweh. See, when you have to see that E behind the Y. Y-E, H-U-A-H, or Y-A. Okay. The element, Yahweh, is found in Amorite personal names, commonly denoted as the semantic equivalent of the acadian. The latter refers to one existing which, in the context of deities, can also refer to one's eternal existence, which align with Bible verses such as Exodus 3:15 and views that can mean I am the existing one. It also explains the ease of Israelites applying the olam or everlasting epithet from El to Yahweh. But J. Philip Hyde believes it is more likely that Yahweh refers to a God creating and sustaining the life of a newborn child rather than the universe. This conception of God was more popular among ancient Near Easterners, but eventually the Israelites removed the association to any human ancestor and combined it with other elements. Halil Ben Sasson states there is insufficient evidence for Amorites using to refer to a god, but he argues that it mirrors or other theophoric names and that, or more accurately, derived from the root, which means he will be. All right. The adoption at the time of the Protestant Reformation, all right, of Jehovah in place of the traditional Lord in some new translation, vernacular or Latin of the biblical tetragrammaton stirred up dispute about its correctness. In 1711, Adrian Reeland published a book containing the text of the 17th century writings, 5 attacking and 5 defending it. As critical of the use of Jehovah, it incorporated writings by Johannes von Dietrich, 1550, 1616, known as Drusius, Sixtinus Amama, 1593, 1629, and Louis Capel, 1585, 1658, and Johannes Buxtorf, 1564, 1629. Jacob Alting, 1618 to 1679. Defending Jehovah were writings by Nicholas Fuller, 1557, 1626, and Thomas Gattaker, 1574, 1654. And 3 essays by Johann Lusden, 1624, 1699. The opponents of Jehovah said that the Tetragrammaton should be pronounced as Adonai, and in general do not speculate on what may have been the original pronunciation, although mention is made of the fact that some held that Javi was their pronunciation. Almost 2 centuries after the 17th century works reprinted by Reland, 19th century Wilhelm Gesenius reported in his Thesaurus Philologus on the main reason of those who argue either for or Yahweh as the original pronunciation of the Tetragrammaton, as opposed to Jehovah. He explicitly cited the 17th century writers mentioned by Reland as supporters of, as well as implicitly citing Johann David Michaelis, 1717, 1791, and Johann Friedrich von Meyer, 1772, 1849, the latter of whom Johann Heinrich Kurtz described as the last of those who have maintained with great pertinacity that was the correct and original point. Edward Robertson's translation of a work by Gesenius gives Gesenius' personal view as my own view, coincide with that of those who regard this name as anciently pronounced Yahweh, like the Samaritans. Talking about the Tetragrammaton. Now you have non-biblical texts. The Hebrew Bible, the Masoretic text. It says, we're talking about the Hebrew Bible, the Masoretic text. The first appearance of the Tetragrammaton is in the book of Genesis, the 2nd chapter, 4th verse. The only books it does not appear in are Ecclesiastes, the book of Esther, and Song of Songs. All right, and it says the short form Yah, a diagrammaton, occurred 50 times if the phrase Hallelujah is included. 43 times in the Psalm, once in Exodus 15, 2, 17, 16, Isaiah 12, Isaiah 12, 2, 26, 4, and twice in Isaiah 38, 11. It also appears in the Greek phrase Alleluia, Alleluia, in Revelation 19, 1, 3, 4, 6. Then you had a Leningrad Codex. Then it comes to the Dead Sea Scrolls. In the Dead Sea Scrolls and other Hebrew and Aramaic texts, the Tetragrammaton and some other names of God in Judaism, such as El or Elohim, were sometimes written in Paleo-Hebrew script, showing that they were treated specially. Most of God's names were pronounced until about the 2nd century BCE. Then, as a tradition of non-pronunciation of the names developed, alternatives for the Tetragrammaton appeared, such as Adonai, Curious, and Theos. It says that a Greek fragment of Leviticus 26 chapters, verses 2 through 16, discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls in Qumran, has Leo, the Greek form of the Hebrew Trigrammaton, capital Y, capital H, capital W. The historian John the Lydian, 6th century, wrote, the Roman Varro, 116, 27 BC, defining him that is the Jewish God, said that he is called Leo in the Chaldean mysteries. Van Kooten mentions that Leo is one of the specially Jewish designations for God, and the Aramaic papyri from the Jews at Elephantine show that Leo is an original Jewish term. The preserved manuscript from Qumran show the inconsistent practice of writing the Tetragrammaton, mainly in biblical quotation. In some manuscripts, it's written in Paleo Hebrew script, square script, or replaced with 4 dots or dashes. Tetrapunctum. The members of the Qumran community were aware of the existence of the Tetragrammaton, but this was not tantamount to granting consent for its existing use in speaking. This is evidenced not only by special treatment of the Tetragrammaton in the text, but by the recommendation recorded in the Rule of Association. Who will remember the most glorious name, which is above all? The table below presents all the manuscripts in which the Tetragrammaton is written in Paleo Hebrew script, in square script, and in all the manuscripts in which the copyists have used Tetrapunctum. Then we come to the Septuagint. Editions of the Septuagint Old Testament are based on the complete or almost complete 4th century manuscripts, Codex Vaticanus, Codex Sinaiticus, and Codex Alexandrinus, and consistently used. Lord, where the Masoretic text has the Tetragrammaton in Hebrew, this corresponds with the Jewish practice of replacing the Tetragrammaton with Adonai when reading the Hebrew word. However, 5 of the oldest manuscripts now extant in fragmentary form render the Tetragrammaton into Greek in a different way. The 2 of these are of the 1st century BCE. Papyrus found 266 uses in the normal Hebrew alphabet in the midst of its Greek text. Transcription of the name. And then 3 later manuscripts in Paleo Hebrew script, the Greek Minor Prophet scroll from Nahil Hebrew, Papyrus Osiris, and Papyrus Orientis. Other extant ancient fragments of Septuagint or Old Greek manuscripts provide no evidence on the use of the Tetragrammaton. In correspondence with the Hebrew text Tetragrammaton, they include the oldest known example, Papyrus Rhylands. Scholars differ on whether in the original Septuagint translation the Tetragrammaton was represented by the Tetragrammaton in either normal or Paleo Hebrew form, or whether different translators use different forms in different books. Frank Shaw argues that the Tetragrammaton continued to be articulated until the 2nd or 3rd century CE, and that the use of Leo was by no means limited to magical or mystical formulas, but was still normal in more elevated contexts, such as that exemplified by Papyrus 4Q 120. Shaw considers all theories that posit in the Septuagint a single original form of the divine name as merely based on a priori assumptions. Accordingly, he declares, the matter of any especially single original form of the divine name is too complex. The evidence is too scattered and indefinite, and the various approaches offered for the issue are too simplistic to account for the actual scribal practice. He holds that the earliest stages of the translation were marked by diversity, with the choice of certain divine names depending on the context in which they appear. He treats of the related blank spaces in some Septuagint manuscripts and the setting of space around the divine name, and repeats that there was no one original form, but different translators had different feelings, theological beliefs, motivations, and practices when it came to their handling of the name. His view has won the support of Anthony R. Meyer, Bob Beckin, and commenting on Shaw's 2011 dissertation on the subject. D.T. Rooney. Okay, so like I said, hey, the Dead Sea Scroll, that's some very serious information. Been carbon dated and everything. The information in the information, the Dead Sea Scroll itself been dated all the way to the late BCE, around the Second Temple or something like that. But the information contained is older than that. It's older than the First Temple. Information very old. We talking about when Moses actually received the revelation from God. You talking about before the temple, period. That's how old this information is. And then you talking about when Moses himself received the information. The information is older than that. You talking about, because the information that you talking about that God revealed to Moses, you talking about Adam and Eve. And you talking about before Adam and Eve. You talking about in the beginning. God said, let there be light. You talking. That information is old. Now we talking about this tetragrammaton. And then over here in Patricia, we still talking about non-biblical places and places in the Bible, like the Dead Sea Scroll. Then they found these Septuagint fragments, and they've been dated. A lot of these fragments are very old. So, when I make my video, it's important to talk about the tetragrammaton. Very important. It's very important. Talking about Yahweh is a very serious thing. Very serious. Anti-gang, anti-Gnostic, anti-hazing, also. And versus heresies, translated meaning against heresies. Saint Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyons, together with Saint Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch, wrote a 5-volume book refuting Gnosticism, proving that Gnosticism was a heresy. Also, St. Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, his 39th Festal Letter, Easter Letter, banned all non-Christian writing. St. Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, together with all the other bishops in the Catholic Church, they went around and collected all that Gnostic theologian writing, and they destroyed it. Some of that Gnostic theologian writing didn't get destroyed. For example, the Askew Codex, the Berlin Codex, and the Bruce Codex didn't get destroyed. The Nagamon Library, it didn't get destroyed. Should have, all this mess should have got destroyed, but it didn't. See, this is what the so-called sorority and fraternity, the sohos and the frat bitches try to do. They try to take all that nonsense, that Gnostic theologian writing, they try to use to be self-destructive and destructive. They try to destroy nature, wildlife, and the environment. They trying to destroy the North and South Pole. They trying to go all out in space now, being destructive and self-destructive by lying. Then they try to have anal sex, talking about the material world is evil. Also, St. Epiphanius of Salome, the Bishop of Cyprus, wrote a 3-volume book titled Panarium Greek and Panarium Latin, translated meaning bread basket. The scholars at the college and university all over the world have said that St. Epiphanius of Salome, Bishop of Cyprus, 3-volume book is also adversus heresies, against heresies. The Almighty Conservative Vice Lord, Four Corner Hustler. The Almighty Black Prince Stone. The Almighty Mickey Cobra Stone, Cracker. The Almighty Black Disciple, Poppy. The Lord, the Bluefin Black Disciple. Lord, Stone Disciple. Gangster Disciple Killer, GDK. Glazed Donut Killer, GDK. 7-Eleven, G Killer. Goofy. Now, something that should have never happened, that did happen. This gangster disciple nonsense and that black gangster new breed nonsense in the city of Chicago in the state of Illinois. Now, Lord Stone disciple, Elvin Pepperlo Perry is real, true. Jeff Ford, because see, Lord Stone disciple, Elvin Pepperlo Perry, the vice lord, conservative vice lord, conservative vice lord, the vice lord, and the four corner hustler. Because see, the four corner hustler, Walter Wheat, was a conservative vice lord, just like the unknown vice lord with Willie Lord. The Lord Stone disciples. Jeff Ford, real and true. See, and that Mickey Caldwell, the Mickey Cobras. That's being real. That's true on them 21 bricks. The Black Disciples. All those that the original members of the Black Disciples who started the Black Disciples. King David Bosdale. Real. True. Lord Stone disciple. See, you can't stand on a lie. That's what a lot of individuals do. They try to lie. Lord Stone disciple is real, it's true. They try to lie. They try to lie. Even today, tried to lie. They thought they going to get away with trying to run and hide. Thought you going to get away with trying to go behind other people's backs. It's going to be justice. See, we got time. We got time. We got all the time we need. See, you thought you had all this time to lie. That includes the Blood Gang, the Crip Gang in Los Angeles, California. Because all they did is the same damn people who was down in Mississippi, who was down in Louisiana, down in Alabama, down in Texas, down here in Memphis, in Tennessee, in Kentucky. You thought you could lie. You thought you could go around and lie. They gonna all try to bunch up in Los Angeles, California. Lord Stone disciple is real and true. See, that's why a lot of the folks and my people, see, trying to use this Gnostic nonsense, talking about some, and then New Age and all this other ignorant stuff that they made up. You can't stand on that lie, man. You can't stand on that. You ain't gonna stand up. You ain't gonna stand up. And talking about you gonna stand up on some anal sex, you got another thing coming. See, all this ignorant stuff is just a bunch of ignorant people just being ignorant, doing stupid stuff. And then they try to make up some kind of way to justify it. They try to make it sound like, yeah, I can do this. You sitting around talking about the God of Israel, then I got my own God. I can have anal sex if I want to. You know, that's the kind of attitude they have. I can do this. I can do. God told me to do. The material world is evil, and I can have anal sex. See, that's what they do. They'll sit around trying to destroy wildlife. They'll sit around trying to destroy, nature. They do that. They'll try to destroy the environment. They do it. Not just in the past, they do it today. They try to destroy wildlife. They try to destroy nature. Trying to destroy the environment. That even you don't even see the North and South Pole. You don't even see what they're doing. Look at your environment. You ain't even looking at your environment. What some of the people in business do. You ain't even looking. And then the people in government. You ain't even looking. What they'll try to do. They try to destroy the environment. They sit around talking about the material world's evil. No, but they do. That's the reason why you got a gang in your community. You get harassed on your job. Little children get bullying. They bullying other little children and get bullied by other little children. You either one or the other. You even the bully. You either the bullyee or being bullied. One or the other. Then you got all these crimes being committed in your community. It be them. See, Lord Stone disciple is real. It's true. The dirty sheets and the willing sheep, they did the right thing. They did. They did the right thing. And Elvin Pepperlo Perry and all the original guys of the Vice Lord, they did the right thing. To get rid of all them stupid clubs and all that nonsense. But see, it was still these people walking around trying to do all this stupid stuff. And that's what that gangster disciple and that black gangster new breed. And then out there in California, that's that blood gang, Crip gang. See, before you get to the gangster disciple here, you got to look at all this history on the black disciple. That's the reason why it don't make no sense. You ain't making no sense at all. Ain't no that. Lords, stones, and disciples, and as well as the Egyptian cobras. And then to see something like this in the 1950s, there was a contestant in a growing African American community in the Inglewood and North Hyde Park area. African Americans resided in Hyde Park in the older section of the community, north of 55th Street. Now that the area was more affordable for struggling African American families, many landlords purchased large mansions in the community and converted them into tenement apartments that were affordable. This upset the southern Hyde Park, mostly white, wealthy elites residing south of 55th Street. These elites had been politically fighting against African American migration into Hyde Park for decades prior. In Inglewood, the community was suffering deterioration and blight as multiple buildings were crumbling and poverty set in by the 1950s. The community remained mostly white until the later 50s, but more African American families were migrating to Inglewood as white flight set in. Blockbusting practices became strong in Inglewood and northern Hyde Park as real estate took advantage of many white families' fears that their community was to become bankrupted by African American migration. This allowed landlords to buy the houses from the panicking white families and convert their old homes into tenement apartments for the poor while neglecting these properties afterward. Desperate, impoverished African American and white families moved into these tenements, which upset the mostly white middle class. Many white families could not afford to leave Inglewood, so they stuck around and created racial clashes with African Americans. White gangs formed that were of a violent breed that were heavily opposed to African American migration. Much of the African American middle class arrived in northern Hyde Park and Inglewood, but soon found these communities were not welcoming or were on the verge of collapse. But it was too late. They already bought the homes. In the year 1953, African American street gangs began to form in Inglewood, like the Inglewood Boys and the 75th Street Brims. These gangs dealt with the worst of the racial battles The Brims were in the far southern part of Inglewood, and even drifted into the neighboring Greater Grand Crossing neighborhood. I am not sure if the Brims and Inglewood Boys were allies or not. I've also heard that Imperial Chaplains and Clovers, who were the biggest African American gangs on the west side, were in the Inglewood area during these more mid-50 years, but I cannot confirm that. In the year 1958, construction began on the Dan Ryan Expressway, which successfully uprooted a portion of Inglewood, Washington Park, Roseland, Morgan Park, and Fuller Park. This mainly affected the impoverished African American community in these neighborhoods, all by design. Many impoverished African Americans had to move in a pinch in areas like Inglewood and Northern Hyde Park was all that was available and affordable. These mostly white areas became further enraged, and the racial differences went full scale. This was when Laverne gathered many African American youth in the Inglewood and Northern Hyde Park areas, mostly consisting of boys between the ages of 11 and 13 years old, alongside the Inglewood Boys and 75th Street Brims, who were older boys. I am not positive, but it is possible Laverne and another named Richard Champ Strong were possible members of the Inglewood Boys or the Brims. It became decided to come together as one major force to be reckoned with to battle these racial issues, but to also deal with the aggressive Egyptian Cobras that were now growing in the Inglewood and Hyde Park area. The Cobras were another African American gang that started in 1958 and were aggressively growing on the south side. The boys decided to flip through the Holy Bible to get ideas, and that's when it dawned on them to use the name Disciple in their title. The boys then added on the prefix Devils to get a name and intimidating edge to it. After that was decided, the Disciple was simultaneous at 43rd Street in Kenwood and scattered throughout Inglewood. A disciples group known as the East Side Disciples was the group that started at 43rd and spread all the way south into Hyde Park to 53rd and Kenbar. 53rd and Kenbar became East Side Disciple headquarters and basically the headquarters for all citywide disciples. However, Inglewood disciples tend to gather at 63rd and Stewart. Some founding members were Richard Champ Strong, who was nominated as the first leader of the disciples, David Barsdale, D. Steele, Mingo Shred, Prince Oldtimer Rob Allen, Roy Kilroy Dawson, Byron Big Shoe Coffee, Leonard Longstreet, Nightwalker, Laverne, and various others. The disciples kept their business out of the press. The disciples established headquarters at the Hyde Park intersection of 53rd and Kenbar, which became their very first stronghold. The disciples created the symbol of the Star of David, the pitchfork, and devil's tail with devil horn when they formed in 1958. The first arch enemy of the disciples was the Sons of Italy, which was a white gang of greasers in Inglewood and one of the more powerful Southside greaser gangs. The Sons of Italy objected to the neighborhood change from white to black and would take out frustration on black youth. The disciples also fought with other black gangs in Inglewood, like the Egyptian Cobras, that moved to the neighborhood from Fuller Park in 1958. All right. Okay. Now I was just reading. All right. The majority of this information is Black Disciple information. Black Disciple. So I got to scroll. Okay, here. Alright, scroll past. Here we go. Alright, like I said, all the information black disciple information, then you get to this so-called supreme gangster nonsense. Now that we began the story with the creation of the disciples, now let's look into the formation of the gangsters. This took place in Inglewood in the year 1964. More specifically, at 68th and Green. A group of 30 young black youths got together at this intersection. As they hung out in Larry Hoover's home and watched outside the window as gangsters and pimps hung out in the parking lot of the Guys and Gals nightclub that used to exist at that intersection. These boys wanted to be just like these pimps and gangsters, and they were living on the border of Ranger and Disciple territory. Larry Hoover was inspired to be a leader of gangsters and began dressing himself very well to fit the role. Eventually, these boys created their own club called the Supreme Gangsters, which was Larry Hoover's idea for the club name. Larry Hoover himself was not the first official leader, but more of a behind-the-scenes type leader. However, Hoover teamed up with street hustler Andrew D.D. Howard and Ike Taylor and made King Ike his right-hand man. The Supreme Gangsters wore the color black, and their symbol wore a heart with wings and a round crown with a sword going through it. The Supreme Gangsters saluted each other with a clenched fist as their hand sign. So like I said, it wasn't no reason for that. You can't even get to this nonsense before you got to read all this black disciple history, and then you got to read all the vice lord history. You got to read all the black peace stone history. And when you read the vice lord history, you got to read all this four corner hustler history as well as the black soul, and on and on and on. Then you got to read about the black Prince stones and all this. Then you got to read about all the black disciple history. Then you get to this nonsense talking about some supreme gangster. So let's go over here to the what they call the black gangster new breeds. And see, when you think you're smart, when you think you can talk about Gnosticism and think you smart, you're not smart. I done already showed you that. You ain't smart. You ain't right about nothing. You know about some homosexual. The material word evil. Let me have booty sex with you. Oh man, you ain't got to worry about it. The material word evil. I'm gonna read this little part here. New breed, black gangster new breed. The history of the new breeds is a complex one is attached to an old breed or African American gangster that has been widely understudied and widely unknown. It is a solid fact that African American syndicates have existed in Chicago since at least the days of John Mushmouth Johnson, stemming back to the 1880s. But the only well-documented African American syndicates is the Policy Kings. They were mostly South Side based. African American street gangs began in 1919 during and following the South Side race riots. Other than these entities, little has been known about black gangsters and black organized crime. This is like due to law enforcement, the press, and past mayors attempt to keep this out of the spotlight from the public eye. It is a fact that law enforcement and the government have not wanted any groups that exhibit any form of black power to obtain any public awareness in the old days. Black Panther groups all the way up to the El Rukns were given bad reputation by the government agencies, and any positive action by such groups were often suppressed or underreported. Although groups like the Black Panthers wanted their positive activity to be given the spotlight, African American syndicate gangsters seemed more than content to stand out of the spotlight. This was beneficial to business. It appears African American syndicates were interwoven into new breed history, which is unique to any other Chicago street gang. A large part of new breed history centers around George Boone Black Davis. There's a lot I do not know about Boone Black, and there's a lot even the streets don't know about. There's also secrets surrounding much about Boone Black. However, in all the research I've done over the years on the breeds and Boone, it appeared much of the missing information because he was, as they say, part of the old breed. The old breed of African American gangsters is heavily undocumented. Not only did the city of Chicago not want these guys to get the spotlight, but these guys also came up during a time when public interest in African American syndicates was little to none. People wanted to read about Al Capone and Italians, or they wanted to read about hoodlums, street gangs running around the city robbing and killing. This is how old school black syndicates like Boone were, like Boone Black were unknown until much later. All right, let's see. Now, we will go to the beginning of the breed history. The breed history on the street begins in the year 1969 in the North Lawndale neighborhood at the intersection of 19th to 16th and Kesey, right near Douglas Park. The original gang was called the Goon Squad or Goon Squad Gangsters. It is possible the founder was named Rab. This was a group of rather violent and crazy youth that were quick with the trigger. They had violent gang wars with the vice lords, especially traveling vice lords, and were recognized by police as far back as 1969, and even made the newspaper a few times dating back to 1969. The Goons made the newspaper 3 times, beginning in 1969, again in 1975 and 1972. All 3 times the Goons were involved in violent crime. Boone was not part of this gang despite what many believe. He was a 31-year-old man in prison at the time and would not be the leader of teenagers shooting and stabbing rivals in the streets while making the newspaper. The Goons get lots of credit, though, because they were starting during a time when North Lawndale was untouchable for new gangs to form because the vice lords and Egyptian codes ruled that whole neighborhood with an iron fist. The vice lords alone ran it from Pulaski to Douglas Park, but the Goons dared to challenge them. The Goons were perhaps more violent than the vice lords, which would later get them noticed by the black gangsters. Once their leadership ended up in prison, Goons lived up to their name. and would later work as murder for hire types, just like the black gangsters in Booney. The next part of this story begins in the year 1972 in Statesville, maximum security prison in Crest Hill, Illinois. An inmate by the name of Julius Davis joined in with a semi-religious group called the Cosmos, which happened to be a group of Chicago gang members from the west side of Chicago. I do not know what gang Julius Davis was a member of, but he organized the men to create their own crime syndicate that would become the Royal Family. Members of this group were in street gangs like Black Gangster Disciple and Vice Lord, and they were some of the most hardcore gang members of these gangs that set aside their rivalry to be a part of the Royal Family. One of the prominent members was Maurice King Baldy Jackson. The men that joined the Royal Family were scheduled to be released from prison in 1972, and they planned on coming together once released and going on a crime spree and letting nothing get in their way. It's interesting to me how all these men just so happen to be released at the same time. This leads me to believe the Royal Family consulted with Jeepers for their legal advice, and perhaps Jeepers helped them to fight their legal battles and get released. Additionally, Jeepers was well known to be a colorful storyteller who loved to share his criminal exploits of being a stick-up man. I theorize it's very possible he told these stick-up stories to the Royal Family, inspired them to begin this armed robbery spree they were about to embark upon when released. Doing stick-ups became the early pastime of the Royal Family. They may have been helped along with advice from Jeepers himself while they were all locked up together. Jeepers was in prison in the early 70s, so it's very possible. One thing to clarify though, the violence that was committed along the way of the Royal Family's robbery would have not been part of Jeepers' advice. Jeepers was never a violent man in any way, shape, or form. Jeepers was said to be a good man and kind-hearted. All right. So like I said, you see the black gangster new breed nonsense. But hey, that's what that narcissism do. People get these ideas that make up all kind of lies, and the material world is evil, so they can have anal sex. And see, the thing about it, see, when you talk about the Jews and the Catholic Church. Let's go over here to heresy in Judaism. Jewish heresy refers to those believed would contradict the traditional doctrines of rabbinic Judaism, including theological beliefs and opinions about the practice of halakha, Jewish religious law. Jewish tradition contains a range of statements about heretics, including laws for how to deal with them in a communal context and statements about the divine punishment they are expected to receive. Now, rabbinic definition of heresy. Talmudic era. The Greek term for heresy originally denoted division, sect, religious, or philosophical party. Is applied by Josephus to the three Jewish sects, Sadducees, Pharisees, and Essenes. In the sense of a schism to be deprecated. The word occurs in 1 Corinthians 11:19, Galatians 5:20, and particularly in 2 Peter 2:1. Hence, heretic in the sense of factious, Titus 2:10. The specific rabbinical term for heresies or religious division due to an unlawful spirit is manim. Literal, kinds of belief. The singular men for heretic or Gnostic is coined idiomatically like God and Aritz. See now, the law, you shall not cut yourselves, is interpreted by the rabbis. You should not form divisions, but shall form one bond. After Amos, the 9th chapter, 6th verse. Besides the term men for heretic, the Talmud uses the words hizonim, outsiders, epikoros, and kofa ba Torah, or kofa ba ikar, he who denies the fundamentals of faith. Also, parish, dark, zibur, he who deviates from the customs of the community. Religious fundamentalists claim that all these groups are consigned to Gehinnom. For all eternity and have no possibility of a portion in the world to come. The Mishnah in Sanhedrin 10:1 says the following: have no share in the world to come. One who says there is no resurrection of the dead derived from the Torah, and one who says the Torah did not originate from heaven, and an epikoros. Rabbi Akiva says also one who reads external literature. Hebrew. This is explained as books of heretics. The biblical verse, so that you do not follow your heart and eyes, is explained as you should not turn to heretic views, minute, which lead your heart away from God. The Birkat HaMonim is a curse on heretics. The belief that the curse was directed at Christians was sometimes cause for persecution of Jews. Modern scholarship has generally evaluated that the Birkat HaMonim probably did originally include Jewish Christians before Christianity became markedly a Gentile, and in the eyes of the rabbinic sages, idolatrous religion. And then it goes on to medieval era, legal status of heretics, rejection of Jewish practice, and heresy in Orthodox Judaism. Jews accused of heresy. So it's a very important, talking about this Gnosticism, heresy in Judaism. Manim. See, when you going around running off at the mouth, trying to accuse other people, you don't know what you talking about, and you know all that. See, that where that gangster disciple, and that where all that black gangster new breed came from. That where it came from. Them the ones that didn't know that blood gang, that Crip gang out there in Los Angeles, California. See, that's what going around trying to accuse other people, talking about they don't know what they talking about, and I'm gonna be a Gnostic, and they make up all these lies just like the Gnostic do. No, I was still looking at this Manil. They're talking about this Hippolytus of Rome. Was a bishop of Rome and one of the most important 2nd, 3rd century Christian theologians whose provenance, identity, and corpus remain elusive to scholars and historians. Suggested communities include Rome, Palestine, Egypt, Anatolia, and other regions of the Middle East. The best historians of literature in the ancient church, including Eusebius of Caesarea and Jerome, openly confess they cannot name where Hippolytus, the biblical commentator and theologian, served in leadership. They had read his works, but did not possess evidence of his community. And Photius I of Constantinople describes him in his Bibliotheca as a disciple of Irenaeus, who was said to be a disciple of Polycarp. And from the context of this passage, it is supposed that he suggested that Hippolytus so styled himself. This assertion is doubtful. One older theorist asserts he came into conflict with the popes of his time and seems to have headed a schismatic group as a rival to the Bishop of Rome, thus becoming an anti-pope. In this view, he opposed the Roman popes who softened the penitential system to accommodate the large number of new pagan converts. However, he was reconciled to the church before he died as a martyr. Starting in the 4th century, various legends arose about him, identifying him as a priest of the Novatianist schism or as a soldier converted by the St. Lawrence. He has also been confused with another martyr of the same name. Pope Pius IV identified him as Saint Hippolytus, Bishop of Pontus, who was martyred in the reign of Severus Alexander, through his inscription on a statue found at the Church of St. Lawrence in Rome and kept at the Vatican, as photographed and published in Bunsen. Now, when it comes to his writings, controversy surrounds the corpus of the writer Hippolytus. In the Victorian era, scholars claim his principal work to be the refutation of all heresies. Of his 10 books, Book 1 was the most important. It was long known. It was printed with the title Philosophia among the works of Origen. Books 2 and 3 are lost, and books 4 through 10 were found without the name of the author in a monastery of Mount Athos in 1842. Emmanuel Miller published them in 1851 under the title Philosophia, attributing them to Origen of Alexandria. Recent scholarship prefers to treat the text as the work of an unknown author, perhaps of Roman origin. The Refutation of All Heresies is a compendious Christian polemical work of the early 3rd century whose attribution to Hippolytus of Rome or an unknown pseudo-Hippolytus is disputed. It catalogs both pagan beliefs and 33 Gnostic Christian systems deemed heretical by the authors, and or compilers, making it a major source of information on contemporary opponents of Christian orthodoxy as understood today. The first book, a synopsis of Greek philosophy, circulated separately in several manuscripts and was known as the Philosophia, a title which some extended to the whole work. Books 4 through 10 were recovered in 1842 in a manuscript at Mount Athos. while books 2 and 3 remain lost. The work was long attributed to the early Christian theologian Origen. The refutation of all heresies. Now, I done been over this on my previous video. So, Jewish principles of faith, monotheism, the concept of God, monotheism, God is the creator of the universe, nature of God, soul devotion to the creator, revelation, Moses and the Torah, the origin of the Torah, prophecy, God's relationship with men. People are born with both a tendency to do good and to do evil. Reward and punishment. Israel chosen for a purpose. The Messiah. Dualism and cosmology. continue to read on this. I'm over here on Britannica. Dualism and religion, the doctrine that the world or reality consists of two basic, opposed, and irreducible principles that account for all that exists, has played an important role in the history of thought and religion. The nature and significance you have mitigated or relative dualism. Okay, let's see here. Then you have another and perhaps more important distinction is that between dialectical and eschatological dualism. So both radical and mitigated types of dualism are found among different groups of the late medieval Cathari. And so you have historical varieties of religious dualism among ancient civilizations and peoples, like Egypt and Mesopotamia, Greece and the Hellenistic world, then Iran, then among South and East Asian religions such as India and China, then among religions of the West, for example, Judaism. No real dualism is found in Judaism, except in the Gnostic and Theosophic forms of Jewish mysticism known as Kabbalah. The presence of a vigorous and universal monotheism implied not only faith in a single creative God, but also faith in a God who is the uncontested master of history, and neither Satan nor Belial detracts from this absolute monotheism. Then you have Christianity. And then it says the Gnostic dualist view survived in late antiquity and into the Middle Ages, both in the East among the Mandeans, the Yazidi, and some extreme sects within the Shiite branch of Islam, and in the West among the Bogomils and Cathari. It is still present today in modern theosophy. Then you have among religions of modern indigenous peoples. So, like I said, we over here on Encyclopedia Britannica. Now let's click over here to Wikipedia. Dualism in cosmology. Dualism or dualistic cosmology is the moral or belief that two fundamental concepts exist which often oppose each other. It is an umbrella term that covers the diversity of views from various religions, including both traditional religions and scriptural religions. Moral dualism is the belief of the great complement of or conflict between the benevolent and the malevolent. Simply implies that there are two moral opposites at work, independent of any interpretation of what might be moral and independent of how these may be represented. And so moral opposites might, for example, exist in a worldview that has one God, more than one God, or none. By contrast, duotheism, bitheism, or ditheism implies at least two gods, while bitheism implies harmony, ditheism implies rivalry and opposition, such as between good and evil, or light and dark, or something. When, for example, a diatheistic system could be one in which one God is a creator and the other a destroyer. In theology, dualism can also refer to the relationship between the deity and creation, or the deity and the universe. You have to look at theistic dualism. That form of dualism is a belief shared in certain traditions of Christianity and Hinduism. Alternatively, in ontological dualism, the world is divided into two overarching categories. Within Chinese culture and philosophy, the opposition and combination of the universe's two basic principles are expressed as yin and yang, and are traditionally foundational doctrines of Taoism, Confucianism, and some Chinese Buddhist schools. And so, when used with regards to multiple gods, dualism may refer to duotheism, bitheism, or ditheism. Although ditheism and bitheism imply moral dualism, they are not equivalent. Ditheism, bitheism implies at least two gods, while moral dualism does not necessarily imply theism. At all. Both bitheism and ditheism imply belief in two equally powerful gods with complementary or antinomous properties. However, while bitheism implies harmony, ditheism implies rivalry and opposition, such as between good and evil, bright and dark, or summer and winter. For example, a ditheism would be one in which one God is created, the other is destructive. In the original concepts of in a bitheistic system, by contrast, where the two deities are not in conflict or opposition, one could be male and the other female. Duotheism, one well-known example of a bitheistic or duotheistic theology based on gender polarity, is found in the neo-pagan religion of Wicca. All right. Then you have radical and mitigated dualism. Radical dualism or absolute dualism, which posits two co-equal divine forces. Then you have mitigated dualism, where one of the two principles is in some way inferior to the other. Then you have theistic dualism. In theology, dualism can refer to a relationship between God and creation or God and the universe. This form of dualism is a belief shared in certain traditions of Christianity and Hinduism. Now, however, Gnosticism is a diverse, syncretistic religious movement consisting of various belief systems, generally united in a belief in a distinction between a supreme, transcendent God and a blind, evil demiurge responsible for creating the material universe, thereby trapping the divine spark within matter. Gnosticism is not limited to Christianity and also incorporate beliefs from other Abrahamic traditions, such as early Jewish sects. Now let me click over to this syncretism. Syncretism is the practice of combining different beliefs and various schools of thought. Syncretism involves the merging of assimilation of several originally discrete traditions, especially in the theology and mythology of religion, thus asserting an underlying unity and allowing for an inclusive approach to other faiths. While syncretism in art and culture is sometimes likened to eclecticism in the realm of religion, it specifically denotes a more integrated merging of beliefs into a unified system distinct from eclecticism, which implies a selective adoption of elements from different traditions without necessarily blending them into a new cohesive belief system. Syncretism also manifests in politics known as syncretic politics. Religious syncretism is the blending of two or more religious belief systems into a new system, or the incorporation into a religious tradition of beliefs from unrelated traditions. This can occur for many reasons, and the latter scenario happens quite commonly in areas where multiple religious traditions exist in proximity and function actively in a culture, or when a culture is conquered and the conquerors bring their religious beliefs with them, but do not succeed in entirely eradicating the old beliefs or especially practice. Religions may have syncretic elements to their beliefs or history, but adherents of so labeled systems often frown on applying the label, especially adherents who belong to revealed religious systems such as the Abrahamic religions or any system that exhibits an exclusivist approach. Such adherents sometimes see syncretism as a betrayal of their pure faith, pure truth. By this reason, adding an incompatible belief corrupts the original religion, rendering it no longer true. Alright, so let me click back over. Ontological dualism. Alternative dualism can mean the tendency of humans to perceive and understand the world as being divided into two overarching categories. In this sense, it is dualistic when one perceives a tree as a thing separate from everything surrounding it. This form of ontological dualism exists in Taoism and Confucianism, and a foundational theory within traditional Chinese medicine believes that divide the universe into the complementary opposites of yin and yang. In traditions such as classical Hinduism, Samkhya, Yoga, Vaisheshika, and the latter Vedanta school, which accepted the theory of gunas, Chinese Pure Land, and Zen, Buddhism, or Islamic Sufism, a key to enlightenment is transcending this sort of dualistic thinking without merely substituting dualism with monism or pluralism. and then you have in other religions. So now let's click over here to mind-body dualism. In the philosophy of mind-body dualism denotes either the view that mental phenomena are non-physical or that the mind and body are distinct and separable. Thus, it encompasses a set of views about the relationship between mind and matter, as well as between subject and object, and is contrasted with other positions such as physicalism and inactivism in the mind-body problem. Now, dualism is closely associated with the thought of Rene Descartes, 1640, who holds that the mind is a non-physical and therefore non-spatial substance. Descartes clearly identified the mind with consciousness and self-awareness and distinguished this from the physical brain as the seat of intelligence. Hence, he was the first documented Western philosopher to formulate the mind-body problem in the form in which it exists today. However, the theory of substance dualism has many advocates in contemporary philosophy such as Richard Swinburne, William Hasker, J.P. Moreland, E.J. Lochar, Taliaferro, Sayyid Jabbar Montefiore, and John Foster. Dualism is contrasted with various kinds of monism. Substance dualism is contrasted with all forms of materialism, where property dualism may be considered a form of non-reductive physicalism. Now we go to types. Ontological dualism makes dual commitments about the nature of existence as it relates to mind and matter, and can be divided into three different types. Now we just got through talking about ontological dualism over here on see, ontological dualism, we were talking about dualism over here. For example, Chinese philosophy or whatever. And so we talking about this mind body, so they're gonna fall up under this ontological dualism. Ontological dualism makes dual commitments about the nature of existence as it relates to mind and matter, and can be divided into three different types. Substance dualism asserts that mind and matter are fundamentally distinct kinds of foundations. Property dualism suggests that the ontological distinction lies in the difference between properties of mind and matter, as in emergentism. Predicate dualism claims the irreducibility of mental predicates to physical predicates. All right. So make sure we don't leave that point out. Is that when we talk about this mind-body dualism, it's falling up under this ontological dualism. And like I said, click back over. Ontological dualism. Alternatively, dualism can mean the tendency of humans to perceive and understand the world as being divided into two overarching categories. In this sense, it is dualistic when one perceives a tree as a thing separate from everything surrounding it. So that's what Descartes was talking about, that the mind and the body, two separate things. The mind is one thing and then the body is something else. Alright, so I'm going to get ready to end today's video. Again, my name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, in the county of Shelby, state of Tennessee. I thank all my family, my support for your continued courage support, and continue to pray, for world peace continue to pray for peace. There are wars being fought all over this planet. You know, and so continue to pray. Thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God, for all the blessing and the guides it provides us all with. And like I said, continue to pray. There are wars being fought. As you know, the war in Israel and Gaza is continuing to go on. It has expanded. It's extending out to Lebanon and the Iranians. It's the war in Ukraine. And again, it's going to be wintertime again. And so, but the war is still being fought, And so, pray for peace. And as well as, even in the Congo, their situation has not ended. There's still conflict in the Congo as well in Central Africa. In the Horn of Africa, there's conflict. There's war in Sudan. As well as West Africa and all over Africa. Some kind of war being fought. There are wars being fought in Asia. In all parts, all these various parts of places in Asia, there's some type of war being fought. So let's continue to pray for peace. And here in the United States of America, we know that there's an upcoming election for federal, state, and local. The presidential election. Like I said, if I could vote, I would vote for Kamala Harris to be the president of the United States. And so, because I don't know what people see in this Donald Trump, my point of view. But, I can't vote, so, but I still just express my support for Kamala Harris. I think she's the best candidate. And I encourage people, first of all, irregardless of the party, if you are, a citizen of the United States of America, and you don't have no felony or anything, you have the right to vote, then I encourage you to exercise your right to vote in federal, state, and local elections. Because that's your right. You got the right to vote. That's your right. Whoever you vote for, whether it be a Republican or a Democrat, you have the right to vote. Then I just encourage you, not just be frustrated with the election or whatever, and just say, well, I'm not going to vote. I encourage you to exercise your right to vote. Cast your vote for whoever you want to vote for, federal election, state election, and local election. Exercise your right to vote. Because remember, man, people have died. So people can have the right to vote. Our country as well as around the world, people have the right to vote. There's a way of people, being able to express themselves, not through violence or anything, but just cast your vote. Vote your conscience. Like they say, vote your conscience. Federal elections, state elections, local elections. And so I'm gonna end today's video on that. And until next time, to my next video, you take care of yourself. And I wish each and every one of you the very best.